passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Well, welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. We have a very special episode coming up today. This is a fantastic interview with new Flensburg coach and former GOG coach Nicolej Krickau, who agreed to have a chat about coming into a new team and being in the Bundesliga. So really excited to have Nicolej on the podcast, and we will get into that interview very soon. But before then, this is Alex Kulesh, and I've got Chris O'Reilly with me. How are you doing, Chris?
Oh, I'm really good, Alex, and very wise to be bigging up the interview before people have heard it at the beginning of the show. But I do agree with you. We've just had it, and one of my favourite interviews we've done in a long time. Nicolej, great guy. Yeah, we'll crack into that shortly. I'm doing well, and you really feel like the season is just around the corner. I mean, as we're recording this and as we just spoke to Nicolej, 10 days until the Bundesliga begins, 9 days until I have my first commentary gig of the season, the Picksum Super Cup between the German league winners and cup winners. And all the pre-season handball is flowing.
Nice. And I think there's some questions about what's the deal with handball or HBL TV this season? Is everything going to be the same as last season, the subscription service?
It's going to be better. I've just been told, given some insight, and anyone who's a subscriber to our Patreon and has access to our Discord would have already seen this. So another reason to join the Patreon. We'll tell you a few more before we go into the interview. But yeah, HBL TV will continue. And we'll also include the second Bundesliga, which I think is a particularly wise move for the US fans, because about half of the US national team play in the second Bundesliga. So John Ryan and JD Orr, all of our friends over in the US, will have a chance to see their national team heroes week in, week out. And so, yeah, I think they're going to try and do a few more games as well with commentary. And I'm excited to be a part of it again.
Yeah, handball's coming back. It's nice, and it feels like it's been gone for a while, but at the same time, it's right back on her doorstep. So we'll have a lot of content your way. So we've just been planning our kind of pre-season preview episodes. So for everyone who has joined us and stuck around during the summer, we really appreciate it. And if you're interested to hear a lot more, then it's patreon.com/handball hour. You can join us for as little as $1 a month to get all the great content your way. And what is that content, Chris, you say? I'll give you a layout. I will give you a layout. We've got coming your way Bundesliga preview. So the first part of this is really this conversation with Nicolej Krickau. We'll have a full breakdown of each team going into the season. There's so much excitement around the Bundesliga again this year. It's really tight at the top, really tight in the middle, and it's going to be a good one. So we'll have a great preview episode going through each team. We'll also review all of the transfers on both the men's side and the women's side before the season, as well as basically Champions League preview starting very, very soon. So on top of that, you'll also get the weekly Morning Club podcast, which comes out roughly from Tuesday to Thursday every week. And we get to touch on some interesting topics in that if you haven't signed up for our Patreon. So all of that is coming your way pretty much over the next 3 weeks. That's at least 4 episodes and at least 4 morning clubs coming your way, all for the price of $1 or $3. And if you really like us, $6 or $9.
100.
You could even give us 100.
You can give us as much as you like. Lots on the way. And it's exciting to have stuff to talk about as well, because we did in the morning club a couple of weeks ago, we were on the verge of despair, I would say. We were pretty close to having nothing to talk about. But we managed to crank out 15 minutes, which is the beauty of that morning club. And our fans on Patreon did appreciate as well the fact that we managed to talk about something for 15 minutes in the depths of summer. Plenty more to talk about right now. But before we go into our interview with Nicolej Krickau, a little bit of info on him, because he's been in our handball lives more and more over the last few years with the rejuvenation of GOG and also then breaking into the upper echelons of European handball, reaching the quarterfinals of the Champions League last season. And we've known them as a great talent factory over the years as well. Nicolej has been, was with the club for 6 years before leaving this summer for Flensburg. Still an incredibly young coach as well, just 36 years of age. He was a player until he had to retire at a young age after a few underage national team appearances for Denmark. He was a playmaker at the time, which I think shows as well in his style of coaching, but became a coach at a very young age and has risen to the top at a very young age as well. And someone that Alex has had his eye on to speak to for a while. And it's just really nice to chat to him here as he embarks on a brand new stage of his career.
Hi, Nicolej.
How are you?
I'm good. And you, ready for a new season?
Yes, really excited. Summer seemed really short. I don't know. It feels like we haven't even had a holiday and then already back in. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, but when so many things happen around the clubs, then it seems like it's just a pretty heavy off-season. So
that's true. Shall we dive in then? Lots to talk about. Nicolej, I mean, you've only just arrived at Flensburg, it seems, but you already had a pre-season game against your old club a few days ago in Denmark. How was it, or how strange was it to be back there and coaching the away team?
Yeah, it was strange. We actually already played them twice, Wednesday in GOG and Friday in Flensburg. So that was a fun matchup planned by myself as a GOG coach. So it was fun to meet the old guys, but not quite the test performance that we hoped. But overall, we learned a bit from those matches, so everything's fine.
So did you plan those games before you left as a coach or afterwards? Was it part of the deal?
No, that was planned before together with Lars and Mike actually, and then and suddenly it ended being on the other side of the court. But
that's brilliant. But maybe we can talk a little bit about your time with GOG to start off this chat. So you had a really amazing success with the club over a period of 5 years, kind of culminating with 2 Danish title leagues wins in a row. Maybe can you tell us about your journey from arriving as a young coach to the team, to building into the champion team it was?
Yeah. I think I came at the right time to be a part of that trip together with GOG. GOG has of course tried to build their way back from the bankruptcy in 2010. And 2 years before I came, they had a good season with a bronze medal. But overall, they were in the peloton around the first 6 or 8 teams. But through the years, the club really improved everywhere around it. Better economy, and in the end, I think we hit a few years where everything was timed right. Mean that we got some extraordinary talents, and we also found our way to integrate them in the right timing, and we got it to fit together with our return from Morten Olsen and Zachariasen, and that mix with Gisel Pytlik and so on, together with Morten and Saki, was the last thing that GOG were missing to end up having those championships. So It's been a fun journey, and I really appreciate the years I had in GOG.
And it seems like your appointment with Flensburg kind of came, maybe not caught people by surprise because your name was thrown out there almost immediately, but because of how things were going with GOG. And is it true that in your contract there was a clause that would allow you to go to Flensburg for the right bid, so to speak? Because I saw that on some Danish media at the time.
Yeah, clearly I extended a few times with GOG, and we always, in the last 2 contracts I made with GOG, we always made sure that if, because they also wanted me to go further if I got the chance, and therefore in the last 2 contracts I had options to, of course, for the right salary, to go to Flensburg. So from that point of view, it was an easy transfer. Of course, the timing from a GOG standpoint wasn't perfect, but from my point of view, I think it ended up pretty perfect, because now I got the chance to do what coaches not normally do, end up with a good situation instead of ending up being fired. So, overall, I really hope that the timing was good, and also maybe someday when I should go back to Denmark, then GOG would be my obvious first choice.
Was it Flensburg in particular then in the clause, or like a bigger club, so to speak?
Yeah, no, we didn't mention was a specific, but all the way through we got a, how do you say it, eye-to-eye deal, where Flensburg was a main priority, and we also made the deal that if I should extend with GOG, then we extend, because they don't want me to go to, not to disrespect them, but middle clubs in Germany. If I should go, it should be top clubs in Europe, and of course we looked at each other and say, okay, Flensburg is a top club in Europe, and therefore it makes perfect sense for me to hit when the possibility was there.
Yeah, and it seems to me that there's been a big kind of combination of GOG and Flensburg, or at least a partnership that has built. Is that something that has just happened organically, or was it kind of put together in a planned way?
Definitely not a planned way. That went many years back, starting from Mogensen, Sven, Egert, and so on. And from there were a little break because of the bankruptcy, but it made perfect sense when Flensburg has a Scandinavian profile in their recruiting. Then, of course, they have a good eye on the big talent development system in Scandinavia, maybe in the world, and therefore it's obvious that the players from GOG is attractive for clubs like Flensburg, and of course Flensburg is attractive for players because it has many Scandinavian values. It also is a top club, and still with good connection to Denmark. So overall, it's quite obvious why Flensburg and GOG has on the way a quite big history for transfers between each other.
And I guess nice that you're coming into the team now that is on the buying side of those transfers, because GOG have been, let's say, a selling club in that regard, developing all of these talents. I know also, I mean, you can see it this summer and with GOG that it's kind of going in the other way as well, and you were trying to regenerate the squad to keep things going. But over at Flensburg now, what are your kind of first impressions of the club and the differences between life in Denmark and at Flensburg?
Yeah, my first impression is that it's just bigger. Everything is bigger. The level of employees in Flensburg is, of course, way bigger than in GOG. But when everything comes to what it's all about, and that's handball, then the differences are not that big. Of course, language is a big factor for me, but overall, when we are at the field, then everything is quite much the same. Of course, the level of each player is maybe a little higher, but GOG has also raised to being a very good club on the players' level. So overall, the biggest difference would of course be that the size of the club is obvious. Also, of course, the number of activities we have with medias and so on are a little bigger. But the biggest difference will, of course, come when the league starts. And of course, we can already feel that from now on, we have 10 days until it's really starting against Hamburg. And if I were still in GOG, we maybe have 11 months until it really starts. And by that, I not mean that, the structure in Denmark doesn't work. I just mean that, if you're a top club in Denmark, then you have a second chance. If you don't perform well in the league, then you have the playoffs. And the league can be away from your hand if you're not there in the first month in the German league. So that, not pressure, but that, different way of having a preseason is obvious a big difference.
And the squad you've come into is really one of the most impressive squads in the Bundesliga, probably in world handball at the moment, especially that backcourt line of Putlik, Gottfriedson and Smits is just really exciting. But how do you go into a situation like this where you have such a large squad, exciting players? How do you think about it tactically to set it up in the right way?
Yeah, that's a huge question. First of all, we are very happy with our squad. We are not so many people. We are 15 guys on the contract, and that means that we have to also be quite smart in our integration of the young players. But overall, it's obvious that when we look at a squad where Simon Pütlik, Kai Smits, Jim, but also Lasse Møller, Mensa and Teitur, all of them are very good when things are going fast. And therefore, of course, we will try to create as much speed as possible in the games. But the heavy part is that even though it's an amazing squad, then everyone is in this team in Flensburg has a new teammate besides you, both end of the floor. That means when you play in the middle, you have Simon on your left side, you have Kai on your right side. That's new for everyone. When you're Simon, you have Kai at right, Emil Jakobsen at left. And in defense, Blago Sensek is also new, Lucas Jørgensen is also new. So we have so many new relations we need to adapt to very quick. We have 10 days more, and we really need those 10 days. But of course, I try to look at every player's quality and try to adapt a playing system where everybody fits as good as possible, and especially, of course, the key players must fit as good as possible because we need to play to our strength, and from that point of view, it have been an important job for me to look at what have Flensburg done right before with the way Jim plays, what have succeeded for Simon in GOG and also in the national team, what works out great for Kai in Magdeburg and also for in Holland and in Ulsterbro. And that's the way it is all around the floor.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jim there, and I think Jim is quite a special player, not only talent-wise, but the way he conducts himself on the court. And, we even saw with Sweden where he's almost assistant coach. Going into a team with a player like that, how do you kind of build that relationship, and how do you see it going forward?
Yeah, it's just all about how do you make the best performance of every player. And of course, it's clearly for everyone that if you want the best performance from Jim, then he should have a big responsibility for what is happening. That doesn't mean that he make all the decisions. He makes some decisions. If I feel that he is the right man to take decisions, the same way as Mensa maybe are taking decisions on other parts of the team. But it will be stupid of me not to bring Jim close into the decision making, especially in offense. And actually, in many ways, it's actually quite much the same process like I had with Morten Olsen in GOG. When we have these handball brains, let's call them that, and also leader types, then it will be stupid of me not to bring their qualities into the decisioning part of our squad. But the other way around, Jim has also been a lot of injured in the last period, and I also think that he needs new impulses. He also needs new energy, and that's of course also my job to bring new thoughts, new inspiration for Jim.
And you mentioned there with Jim being injured, the way the Bundesliga is set up, you're going heavy in 10 days with Hamburg, Magdeburg, Kiel in the opening 3 games, which is one hell of a welcome. But maybe you're not even thinking too far beyond Hamburg.
We tried to say we can only cross the bridge ahead of us. We can't cross the bridge number 3 or 4.
Yeah. But in that and thinking about the whole year to come in comparison to life in the Danish league, Flensburg have also been hit with a lot of injuries over the last few years. How different is the concept of load management and thinking about training with this club? Is that something you've had to dive into a little bit differently?
Yes and no, because in GOG we also the last 2 years played Champions League and also have national team players who are playing to the end in every tournament, and that means that the number of games in the best Danish clubs compared to a European league season with Flensburg is not that different. Of course, the travel part is different, and therefore we need to be smart. As I said before, we are only 15 players, and every one of us knows that when we get into the season with 2 games a week, then there are not a lot of trainings, and therefore we need to train smart when we are training. And the most important thing that I want to bring into this club is, just common sense. We're not lead by principle. We're not trained by a principle because we have to, or maybe because we lose yesterday. We try to do it with common sense overall as a leading point from our leadership, and that means that when we look into a season with 34 matches in the Bundesliga and a maximum of 16 matches in EuroLeague, then we need to rotate a little more than Flensburg have done the last years. I actually think that both Mark and Mike wanted to rotate more the last years, but because of injuries, then it was hard to rotate. And I also know that when it is a direct tournament and one without playoff system, then it is harder to rotate if you don't have 100% trust on your bench. And therefore, I want to be quite clear that some matches will be played with few players, but some matches will also be played with many players. And that's not only because of the opponent. That's not only because trust or not trust. It's also because of how we look and into the situation right now this week. How does the situation look like in the specific game? Do we have the feeling that it would be right to rotate a lot to be ready in the last part of the game? Then we will rotate a lot. If we think that it would be the right way to play with only 8 players in that specific match, we will play by 8 players, and that will be our leading structure the whole year. But of course, I'm also humble that I haven't tried it before, so I also have to learn quick how these guys are reacting on the heavy load from the traveling and so on.
And you mentioned there, again, in previous seasons where Flensburg have had injuries. And I've kind of always wondered this, because there's been games where they literally had 11 players in the squad. and would play with 8. Is this this is different to GOG, where there's a big talent pipeline, and if there is players missing, there's someone available, maybe at not the same level.
You go find a good 15-year-old somewhere.
A good 15-year-old that's gonna be the best player in the world in 18 months. But is that something that's just not there for Flensburg? That kind of second, they do have a second team, I know, but how do you is that something that's not there, and do you want to build that up a little bit?
Yeah, it's not there yet. And if we should compare just a little, then in GOG, it's very easy to bring those young guys into training every week. And so when Hjalte Lykke or Simon Pytlik or Mathias Gissel will be brought into the first team for the first time, they may be trained with GOG for 2 or 3 years in front of that. That's not an option in Flensburg. The level differences is right now too big. We have a few players who we are trying to integrate slowly into our team, but overall the differences on level is right now too big. That's also because Flensburg is a bigger size than GOG, of course, but it's also because that OR has maybe 30 years history for bringing young talents into GOG, and that's a whole different structure. But we actually will try to improve our academy situation. Lubo also have a very important task in his assignment. Try to inspire and also bring new ideas into the academy. So first of all, there are many good people. I have already met most of them. There are many good people and good trainers now in the academy, and that's a very good start. And when we have good trainers, then the next part is to be better at recruiting. And when things are going better with recruiting and coaching profiles, then in the end, Flensburg would also be able to bring better talents from academy into our first team than we are now. But for in the moment, it's not totally ready to just have a big pipeline. There is a small pipeline, and we will try to integrate a few players, but not the big pipeline as in Berlin, Rhein-Neckar, or GOG.
This is your first Bundesliga season coaching the team, and I know last season was perhaps one of the most exciting and open title races in a long time, which Flensburg was a part of it for a while. Have you had a chance to think about the other contenders so far, and if so, what is standing out to you team-wise and exciting players that are on your mind?
Yeah, I really think, of course, I've used my summer to try to learn everything about the Bundesliga. I, of course, had a big knowledge of the top clubs, but I really tried to improve my knowledge from the middle and down. But according to the fight for the title, I really think that the top 5 is the favorite still for top 5. I think that Rhein-Neckar, if they will have Jaganets back, they have a great chance to improve even more. Spade is developing good. And so they have a great roster. Now it's Gissel's year number 2, and that means that he will be even better. So Berlin also have a great chance. They, of course, are a little low on right-handed backcourt players now, but maybe they will find 1 more or 2 more, and then they will also be in the race. And then everybody says that Kiel without Sargussen and Landin is too big of a problem. But the thing with Kiel is, even though I'm a coach for Flensburg now, Kiel is just always there. So they are stable, and they have a big roster with lots of quality still. So they will also for sure be in the title race. And of course, I look at Magdeburg as the biggest favorites. Hopefully, we will also be in that group. But Magdeburg really looks strong. I know they have injuries on Gisli, but the signings of Klar and Janus will help with that. And if Omar and Lagergren comes back, then I really see Magdeburg as the biggest favorites. And of course, Saustrup with the key role he has. If he joins Magdeburg for a whole season, then then they have a good chance to go far in every tournament. And thereafter, I really think that now I use much time looking at Leipzig, Hannover, and Melsungen the last weeks, and I really, really think that those three teams have a good chance to be not just outsiders, but dangerous outsiders for top 4 or 5. Hamburg also, but especially Leipzig and Hannover looks great at the moment, I think.
Yeah, Leipzig seem to be making a bit of few waves.
Yeah, we look into a season where everything will go tight one more time, I think.
Maybe just, I'll bring it back a little bit. You mentioned you're going for a fast style of play, similar to what you had in GOG. But I'm a big fan of that style. I was always a big fan of GOG, but it has received some criticism from kind of the wider handball community, kind of stating that, is this even handball anymore?
Stop it.
Well, I don't agree with that.
They're too fast.
I don't agree with that for sure. But I'm sure some of our listeners might be thinking of that statement. What would you say to that? To that kind of statement?
It's just religion, and I really also appreciate the 2020 game when things are 6 against 6 and heavy defense and big physical improvement by the team. I also like that. I'm just not the good coach at that part. So of course, my teams should play the way that I think I can bring the best level into the team. And of course, you have to look at every team and say, okay, which players do we have? It's obvious that Magdeburg should play fast. It's obvious that Flensburg should play fast. Berlin, Rhein-Neckar also. And it's also obvious that Kiel is very good at playing in the second phase because they have heavy shooters from distance in that phase, and so on. So I think that it has been an important rule with that fast middle because 7 against 6 is also there. So if we don't have the fast middle situation and we still have 7 against 6, then we are in risk of having a just even slower play, and that would be quite boring from my point of view. So overall, I think we need every styles in handball. That fast style is the style I like at the moment, and also the style I have players fits best at. But the other way around, I still feel that Kielce with their strategic way of playing and so on. It's also important for him.
And then maybe a last question, and this is a big tactical or technical skill that your team had in Denmark. Will you be bringing over the GOG 5-step to Germany?
Now you really hit a place where I say, okay, now you need to stop me, because actually it is in Iceland all this stuff. Gisli is taking 5-6. Felix Klar, Sweden are taking 5-6 steps. Gisel are taking 5-6 steps. Simon, maybe 3 or 4, 5. But it is a big problem in handball right now. But it's not only GOG, it's also Iceland, it's Sweden, it's all the 1-against-1 players, and we need to find out in Royal Handball right now what will be the best for our sport. And from my point of view, we like too much that players like Gisli, Omar, and so on have a chance in handball, and not only Momir Ilic. Sorry, Momir. But not only Momir types have a chance. And therefore, I think it's time for saying, okay, we need to allow step number 4. But from that point, we really also have to stop it, So 3 is unrealistic for players like Gisli, Klar, Simon, and so on, if we should play like we do now. And I really think that it is entertaining. But if we change the rule to 4, and that's my opinion, then we also need to have a new start for the referees to say, okay, that is 4 and not 5 or 6. And I know it's difficult, but we need a new start with the steps rule, and we definitely will see that my teams will try to use everything they can to win, even though it takes 7 if the referee are not judging it.
I can't wait to see Kai Smits with 5 steps now. This is going to be a whole new level.
Kai just have to shoot.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad you're telling him. Someone has to tell him to shoot.
Exactly.
We've taken so much of your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Nicolej. It's really, really nice to hear your thoughts here before the start of the season. Just a quick one on the language, because you mentioned it before. Is it going to be Danish in the timeout?
It's obvious because we only have Golla and Blagošević and Buic, which not speaks Danish. But of course we are a German club, and we will speak German as much as possible. And we have a goal for the team that when we hit Christmas, we are a 100% German team, and therefore this podcast was very difficult for me in English because on daily basis I really am bad mixing up German, English, Danish.
Your English is fantastic, Nicolej, and we want to hear Jim Gottfriedsen's English at some point. So don't be afraid to let him do that in the time.
He's not good at English, but he's definitely very good at German, and that's good help for me. But no, Flensburg is a German club, and we will of course reach for a full German team.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time. Also, with just a few days until the season starts, really excited to see how it goes, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
You're always welcome.
Thank you to Nicolej. Fantastic interview, as Alex promised, and it was delivered. Really fun insight into how things are at Flensburg with this basically a new era for them. Matching the excitement I think we have for this squad, and also a few home truths as well delivered, which is really nice.
4 steps, the future of handball. You heard it here first. Let's see where that goes.
In all the discussion about new rules in the sport, that is one thing that really people have it's almost like a sacred cow. It's like, oh no, we can talk about shot clocks, we can talk about 14 referees, we can talk about this and that, but don't touch our steps. But actually, as soon as he said it, it made a lot of sense.
It does, but I find it's one of those basic principles of handball. It's one of those things that you learn straight away as a child. And for most people, actually, we've played with beginners a lot, playing in Ireland and other countries. That's one of the first things that they find difficult to grasp, the steps. But it's so ingrained in handball players, coaches worldwide, that even though some players have been able to develop this kind of additional technique to give them an extra advantage, I feel like it would be so unnatural for the majority of handball players in the world for a long while. It really comes down to pure technique as opposed to specific, rules of the game, like the middle kind of running start that we have now. It's an interesting point of view, absolutely. I've never heard that discussed at any level, but if it has to go one way or the other, from my perspective. Either has to be kind of completely clamped down or reviewed, and that's not up to me to make that decision. And but it is an interesting view on things, and especially the ability or granting the ability of the smaller players, the faster players, some advantage. Yeah, it is an interesting way of looking at it.
What do you think about what he was saying about the team? Common sense approach to dealing with the squad as well sounds very refreshing, but also very honest about the fact that this is going to be a new experience for him as well, and that he's got a lot to learn. The way he spoke about the other clubs, he's clearly done his homework. You get the feeling that he is very open to how things, or to what experiences he's going to have and how things might have to change as the season goes on, which feels like a very healthy way to approach a job like this.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. But I think him coming in at this stage and this slight rejuvenation of Flensburg as a club that seems to have happened. You also mentioned Libya Varandias coming in. there is almost a bit of a restart happening here and a long-term plan, as opposed to what we were kind of discussing last season. And a lot of the kind of people in handball were like, oh, this is just Flensburg being trigger happy. This is a crazy decision to fire a coach in the middle of the season. You know, all of these kind of knee-jerk emotions that came in when that decision happened, versus speaking to Nicolej now and seeing what Flensburg have done around the whole club. You can see that it's a long-term vision. It's not just a stopgap. And I think that allows Flensburg as a club a bit of leeway. How long that leeway goes, of course, is it's always hard to predict at a high-pressure environment and a high-pressure season like the Bundesliga. But with the squad they have, with a very accomplished coach, I think all the ingredients are there for a really exciting team.
What excites you most about it?
I'm excited to see them playing full fast pace. When you said that's the approach you're going for, that's what I'm excited to see at a kind of at a next level. There was always a ceiling with GOG and that approach in terms of the personnel they have and the turnover they have. But interesting to see really a top level team take it to the maximum level. Of course, it's not the first time Barcelona have been doing it for years, but it's different. And I'm excited to see how that works in the Bundesliga as well as the Champions League. I actually think that they might have a better chance in the Champions League with this type of approach, because we've seen that be quite successful in the Champions League over the last couple of seasons, that really fast style of play. So, something's telling me that we're going to see Flensburg in the Final Four this season.
Well, that would be impossible, saying as they didn't qualify for the Champions League.
God, European League, they're going to win it. Oh,
I thought you're making a good point there, but they have to qualify for the Champions League first, which is step number one.
God, I got carried away.
You got very talking about 2025 already.
That's it. 2025 Flensburg Champions League champions. Put it down now.
There you go.
But the European League is... But actually, kind of continuing that, we don't have to cut that out of the episode. But I think the European League gives a bit of leeway for Flensburg this season, that it's not that they can focus on the Bundesliga a little bit more, because it gives a little bit more leeway with the level of games that they'll face in the European League, which of course will ramp up and will become more and more intense, but at least it gives a slightly easier start in that rotation, in that focus for Flensburg to actually target a Bundesliga position to then win the Champions League in 2025.
I'm just thinking about here when talking about the speed of the team, and thinking about that let's say the first trio of players in the backcourt with Pitlick, Gottfriedson and Kai Smits, all three players who are well capable of just scoring or shooting on sight, basically once they get into position and the first time they get the ball. And how when Slovenia at the last major championship, when they played in a man-up situation, just leaving Blagotinšek back in defence, maybe they'll just do that all the time. And just or in counter-attacks, Blaz just stands there as like, you don't need me, lads, just go. Otherwise, he'll be struggling to keep up, going back and forth.
But you have to say, kind of looking personnel-wise, we talked a lot about the backcourt, but the line player position is probably the best combination of line players that we see across any clubs in Europe, with Johannes Golla, Blagotinšek and Lucas Jørgensen. So essentially they have Golla, who is an offensive juggernaut, just a real superstar, good defender as well, for sure. Blagotinšek, who's an incredible defender and a good attacker, and then Lucas Jørgensen, who is an incredible transition line player, and kind of equally good in attack and defense. Of course, he's still young and will have to adjust to the Bundesliga and all of those steps. But the combination and the profiles there, while it seems like having these 3 top line players is a bit much, I think it really works and gives them this really strong core.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the 3 of them. I think that, as you said, they all offer something a little bit different, and you can imagine all 3 of them, fitting in together as well. Like let's say in a rotation of 2 at a time playing in defense and 1 going up into attack, they can all do a job there. And Blagotinšek in particular has had a chance to settle into Bundesliga life last year with Göppingen, so I think he won't have any bother just throwing himself straight in there. And all around, yeah, I mean, also on the wings there, I think is quite 2 exciting pairs. Both wings, you've got a Norwegian and a Dane in there. I'd say the Danes as the first choice guys, the Norwegians as the second choice. An added bonus is that the new right wing in from Norway, he joined from Bjerringbro, Axel Horgen. By the way, we should see what his Irish passport credentials are with a name like Horgen. He's got a partner called Henny Reistad, who, yes, his partner is Henny Reistad. Yeah, I mean, if you need any more inspiration, if Jim Gottfriedson, as Nicolej saying, Jim Gottfriedson, he could do with a few new impulses, some new ideas. Maybe Axel can invite Henny to come in for a couple of training sessions and have a chat. Show him how it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, really exciting squad. There does seem to be, for me personally at least, a real excitement about Flensburg that may have been a little bit dulled over the last few seasons. A big part of that being the injuries and the kind of turnaround in the squad that has happened with Flensburg for kind of 3 years running. This time around, there's just excitement.
Really exciting times for Flensburg, and we're just, I think, really pumped to see what Nicolej and this team can do. A squad full of really interesting and likable players as well, which we just hope that they are able to hit the ground running with that really tough start to the Bundesliga. We'll go into more detail on that early run and all the other contenders for the Bundesliga. At the beginning of this podcast, Alex promised that we'd speak about every single team. Well, that's what we're going to have to do. It might be 50 minutes on the hilarity of Melsungen, and then 1 minute on the rest of the teams. Who knows how these things go? But that'll be coming up soon, as well as the transfers podcasts as well, which are always fun to talk about. But until then, everyone, thank you for listening. Make sure to jump onto Patreon to get the full extent of the fun in the coming weeks. We'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.